Hi, my name is Douglas Vo from the Dye Hole Foundation, and it's March 16th, 2021, and this is video series 4, but part 6, and I'm going to cover what the foundation will be doing to help save your lives. There are a lot of people in videos that describe what happened the last ice age in polar reversal. Some do it and say there's going to have another one, which is true. But nobody so far is trying to give you a way of actually saving yourselves. This is kind of an event that you cannot do it yourself. It takes a lot of people to actually do it because of the magnitude of what you have to get ready and build in order to survive this thing. So this is what the video is going to be covering. Of what we've done so far. Finding engineers to design the cave door system. That is probably the most key part of surviving this thing, is the cave door. There's been archaeological finds where they found a cave and lots of bones of all types, animals and people. And it means that they went into a cave to survive for this event, but they didn't have a door. So the ocean came and filled up the cave and they all drowned. And if it didn't drown, then the extreme cold killed them also. So the cave door is the most key part of this whole thing. Finding geologists both in the target countries and outside the areas. And as we need geologists both in North America and in Europe, as well as the geologists in the target areas where I think you have the best chance of surviving this thing. And I'll cover this in the video. The experts already associated with this project, I'm going to list them, you'll see what their backgrounds are. Determining the height and speed of the ocean wave during the reversal. We're trying to figure that one out. It's pretty key. Organizational structure of the individual survival cave systems. And finally, a short recap of the places not to locate if you want to survive this reversal. So let's start in. If you're finding this, if this is the first video of mine you've seen, you probably should wind up seeing more of video series 4, which is on the polar reversal and cataclysm. All of the videos are in the description area down below, and I'll tell you a brief summary of what it is in the link to watch it. Anyway, part 5 shows you what government has done and also where you should go, where the best places are to go. This video is different. That's why it's a part 6 of this series 4. The key of the reason why I figured this thing out and no one else beforehand is an information theory of existence I developed all the way back in 1977. My first book called Reality Revealed, The Theory of Multidimensional Reality. Unfortunately, either I have to decide to reprint the book, which I can, or you can buy it used. Unfortunately, the last I looked on Amazon, it was going for $1,050 all the way to about $1,500. Sorry about that. I have the book on a DVD for $10 plus shipping. Anyway, the philosophy has to come first. That's how you wind up figuring all of this stuff out. This is the first iteration, Theory of Multidimensional Reality, the third iteration of the theory. Here's the one from 2007, the second iteration. But chapter 4 in this book has, chapter 8 has a large section and the physical evidence that our sun nova is what happens during this, like 400 references just in the journal Science and Nature and Geology. So you're going to learn a lot, but that's the main two things. The philosophy is the most important, and also the proofs that you understand this event's really going to happen. I should probably also thank DARPA for their caves contest. They indirectly proved my point that they know this event's going to happen, and they built $21 trillion worth of cave shelters that aren't going to do them any good. Okay, the next stage for the Dye Hole Foundation is bringing together mechanical and civil engineers, geologists, mining engineers and a bunch of other people to solve the first problem, which is the cave door system. And now, that's not the only thing they have to figure out. Later, it's going to be a sewer system, water system, an air filtration system. How do you get rid of the carbon dioxide? For that reason, this is the most important part right now. And we do need more engineers to help in this project from the group I have. These are the steps that we have to go through, or what's important. The location of the cave site, that really means the locale of the hill or mountain where it is. Is it near a volcano, or is there a rock slide danger or a landslide danger? Second, how far away is the cave system from the ocean? Namely, the ocean is going to come in from the west and go east very fast, a lot of water. So you want to find a location that's far enough away from that danger, because, like, for instance, in the west coast of Africa, the Atlantic Ocean off that coast is from 15 to 17,000 feet deep. Crush levels for submarines is like 1,600 or 1,700 feet. And that's when the cigar collapses down to a pencil. And I don't know what kind of water pressure would be involved on the first few hundred miles of something like that until the wave flattens out. So I'm not going to pick right now any place that's on the west coast of anything. The elevation of the cave site also determines how much water pressure it's going to exhibit. It also means that we'll have different versions of the cave door, some that are thinner because of the elevation. We don't expect to have more water pressure. For the cave shelter, the rock or material that make up the hill or the mountain, that's important also. Do you do sandstone, do you limestone, or igneous, or granite, or those are the considerations that you have to, and that takes a geologist there to wind up determining that. The way it works generally, the geologists work closely with the civil and mechanical engineers to make this thing work. For cave shelters on the side of the earth that will receive the nova, and that, as I showed you in the previous videos in part 5 of series 4, we think it's going to be a longitude running through like Saudi Arabia and Moscow. I'll show it to you a little later in one of the pictures. But so we have to worry then about not only the water pressure, but also the fire. Everything that's on the surface will burn, noxious gas, as well as heat. How much heat would the sun generate on that side of the earth for the 6, 7, or 8 hours it's sitting there? That's the issue. We don't know that piece of information. I'm not too sure we could figure it out. There's maybe a way to back into it. 6, shelters on the nova side will also have to have ample air supply for weeks because, like I mentioned, everything on the surface is going to burn. A lot of noxious gases, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. And so you have to prepare for that. They're going to have some kind of an air supply there for a while until it's safe to get out. The cave system has to be able to take prolonged earthquakes of 7 or more or above for hours. It's not going to be like a couple of minutes the earthquake's over with. No. The plates are going to be banging up against each other for the period of time that the earth has stopped its rotation, which is the other issue. We don't know if it takes hours, days, or weeks for the earth to stop slowing down and then stopping for a number of hours. We don't know that. My educated guess was 7 to 8 hours. If it's less than that, it means it took longer for the earth to continue rotating in the opposite direction. Took longer to do that. But those are the things we think we know, or we're close, but unless there's no way you can know. Well, there's one way, and I'll go with it later. Anyway, 8, logistics and getting to the site location. You may have to build a dirt road to get to the side of a hill. If we're only going for hills and mountains, it's not farmland. We're not going to be bothering the local farmers at all. It's just you're building a mine shaft. And so you may have to build a dirt road to get to the place and to supply it and to get equipment there to do the digging to make the cave system. Well, I almost forgot. Cave system has to be able to take prolonged, I already covered that. Okay, so these are some of the variables. There'll be more variables we'll find later as we're doing this project. Again, these are the engineers we need. Structural, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, mining engineers. This is really important. Steel and concrete engineers and metallurgists. All of them are necessary. If you are one of these, please contact me at research@dieholefoundation.com. It's a volunteer thing. I don't have the money right now to pay anybody. These are the engineers I've collected so far, from general engineers, structural, civil and structural engineers, and this is Louisiana. Him I talk to all the time. Australia, New Zealand, California, Ohio. Some are really interesting. This mechanical engineer, he's helped with working on the speed and the height of the wave, trying to figure it out. There's variables involved, and we really need NOAA to help with that if they've done any work on this. But I'll contact them at some point fairly soon and see if I can get them to help at all. I'm sure somebody in NOAA does know that the sun is going to nova and we're going to have a polar reversal pretty soon. Steve Alder, as an inventor of high-strength concrete that goes up to 36,000 psi. That would certainly solve the problem of the cave door and reinforcing the cave around the entrance. He's in California. He's a little bit younger than me, but he had a stroke. Tim Mueller, he's the gentleman who owns the company that built the hand generators that he has sold to foreign governments and the U.S. government for these shelters. The hand crank stuff. And Stephen is a licensed structural engineer. He's in New York City. I don't have his phone number. I don't know what his last name is. Now, I got lucky. A top former engineer and executive from Boeing Defense Division, had contacted me. He's 2 months younger than me. He's willing to walk into this. And anyway, his name is John Grimsley, degree in industrial engineering from Arizona State, a lean enterprise certificate. I'll have to explain that. I had to ask him what that was. It's a method of production that Toyota had developed. So Boeing wanted to apply it to short-run aircraft manufacturing. And he said, well, the Air Force may say we want 25 planes, so it's a short-run production line and trying to apply some of this. And that's called lean enterprise certificate. Anyway, he was the chief industrial engineer for the VP of operations and quality at Boeing Defense. That's a big position. He was I think it was 13 years, and he saw 6 of these VPs go through. He worked at Boeing for about 30 years. He was former Air Force. He has secret, top secret, and Yankee White clearance. Yankee White is anyone who works on Air Force One. So he sent me an outline about doing a project like this. And I'm sure he got much of it from what he has from Boeing. And as an accountant, I saw it and I said immediately, this makes a lot of sense. If you want this thing to happen, you need people like this to make sure you don't go astray and you're doing it right. So I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'll only point out some of the things that I thought were really important. One, the objective clear, simple, and doable? I think it is. It's certainly clear. It's called saving some of the human race. Is the environment clear and defined? Does the selected strategy have the best chance to archive and achieve the objective of understanding the current environment. I hope so. With his help and others, I hope so. We don't really have much choice. Even for those who spent the $21 trillion and they now know, thanks to me, they have a drop-dead date, and they know they made a colossal mistake, they need my help as well as other people. And I'm more than open to help them also. Anyway, let me go on further. You can see someone, I'll try not to block the screen too much. Coaching leadership, 4 elements of execution, and here's the 4 elements. 4 elements of execution. Schedule, resources, removing barriers, and oversight in place. 3, building and analyzing organizational systems. We don't really have that yet. Skilled leadership that work together. That's what I'm trying to get enough engineers and people like this and geologists together. I'm envisioning not just 1 or 2 or 3 of these cave shelters, but rather thousands of them that will, each one being between 1,600 and 2,000 people, like a small town. But you need that many people with skills in order to make this thing happen. You can't, like I said earlier, you can't do this thing by yourself. It takes a lot more than that. Culture that will not tolerate variance, only accept the best as average. And with this particular case, we're going to do the best we can. Develop and analyze manufacturing, business, and project oversight process to ensure the below elements are addressed. And there's 11 of them here. I won't go through all of them. Is the function objective of the process clear and simple? I think it is. 3, are the process results repetitive? If you're going to have hundreds or thousands of cave systems, it better damn well be repetitive. Anyway, this is all of it. I'm not going to go through all of it. It's not necessary. You could read it here and pause the video if you want. You want to read them. But everything he said here is absolutely true to make a project successful. And this is one case. It has to be successful. Have no doubt about it. This has to do with the survival of the human race. If we don't do this, nobody's going to make it. This event is that bad. Finding engineers to design the cave door system. Foundation will still need a lot more engineers to help. If you're going to have hundreds or thousands of cave systems, you're going to have dedicated engineers to go over how the things are being built and what's going to go in them and what will work and what won't work. Same list I had earlier. If you're interested, send research at Die-Hole Foundation for those engineers and geologists. If you're government personnel, I got contacted with one of them, I won't say who. You're welcome. Please come, I will help you. And you can help us. These are earlier drawings by David O'Toole in Australia. He obviously has the problem of the Indian Ocean rushing over Australia, and then the backslash from the Pacific Ocean just to make life more interesting. Now he started off with this. This is the size of a man, and assume this is the front entrance of the cave, but he made the door awfully small. Can't have a door that small. You need something that's big enough you can bring equipment in and people and stuff like that. You're not going to crawl through a hole that small. So that got scratched. And also, this got scratched because once he found out the water pressure involved when you have to, 3, 4, or 5,000 feet of ocean water rushing over you, you're talking a tremendous amount of water pressure. In fact, we contacted some of the companies that make doors for submarines and for ships, those round oval doors, and they said they couldn't make it like that. They couldn't. Their things are good for like 300 or 400 pounds per square inch, but this thing, we're talking into the thousands. So the size of a man, this would not work at all. These lines here are rock bolts that have to be shoved into the rock. By the way, I've been told the weakest thing of this whole thing may be the rock itself. Because remember, in order to make the tunnel, you have to use dynamite. Okay, the other people we have to find at the same time are geologists. Very important, you need them because you need them not only in the study areas, which I'm going to say which ones they are, the areas, but you also need them up north. The foundation is going to have to, once we find geologists in Colombia, Brazil, Peru, we have one, and we know a lot more of them. And they go out and they find an area. I'm going to have to pay for a US geologist or a European one to go down to, in our case, down to South America or Central America to examine it also. 2 sets of eyes are better than one. Somebody may look for other dangers in the area, whether it's going to be a good idea or a bad idea to put it there, including the rock and the surrounding area. So that's why the foundation at some point is going to need money to send people down there to check the work of the other geologists. And may have to even pay for some of the local geologists to go out to the areas. These places are inaccessible sometimes. These are the geologists I found so far. This person is an Australian with a PhD in environmental science and forest ecology. John is a professional geologist. He's in New Jersey. Christopher Denkin, degree in geology, is in Sweden. We correspond with, I forgot what series he used, what thing he used, but we were able to talk online. Vince, hard rock miner in Nevada. We had a great talk. I've called him a couple of times. Since I did gold mining up in the Klondike in California, we had a lot to talk about, and I know he is a gold miner. But you need guys like that. The people who actually do mining, hard rock mining, they know how to do it. They know how to set the charges, blow it up without destroying half the mountain. Tom is a retired scientist and hydrologist from U.S. Forest Service, a degree in soil science. And he found glaciers in Arizona because he spent a lot of his time in Arizona. And I'm going to go in, later at the end of this video what to look for if you think you want to go someplace and you think it's going to be safe. You'll find out real fast yourself whether it's safe or not. Jessica, I got one female geologist. Master's degree in geology and geochemistry. That's really good. Well, 3.9 grade point average, she's smart. And she has international experience. She knows somebody in Africa. And she's in Southern California and she doesn't want to be there. Anyway, these are the study areas that gives you the best chance of survival. And the reason is, in case this is the first time you've seen my videos, you should go back and look at the other ones. The equator is, the water and the ocean water in the equator is still going to be warm. It takes a lot of energy to cool down that much water. And so it will mediate how much snow is going to land in this area. And that's what I worry about. If you can survive the wave and the nova if you're in Africa, then the next thing you have to worry about is the snow and then the ice. And that's why I don't want you to be up here, further north, or further south. Your chances are next to nil. I'd say it's impossible, but more or less, if you're up from here up, forget it. Anyway, these are the areas. Mexico, southern Mexico. Basically, it's a little bit above it. You want to be between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. Now, they're both 20 degrees, about 20 degrees north and south. I'm saying 15 degrees to be safe. There's plenty of places and plenty of land for lots and lots of people to build caves. So Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, east. Now, even though not much land in this Central America, a huge amount of water in the Pacific Ocean, but if the rock is good enough and strong enough and the cave door is good enough, you only have to worry about the water over you for probably no more than a week. First, the initial day of the Pacific Ocean rushing over you, and then you have the backslash coming this way from the Atlantic, but the ocean should settle down. They're going to be sloshing backwards and forwards for a while. Eventually it's going to settle down, probably within a week, and then you can get out. By then it's going to maybe start snowing. By the way, it's going to snow all over the world. The place is going to be one big white snowball, but less snow, I think, in this area than any place else. Areas of South America, Colombia, eastern, Venezuela, Brazil, northern and eastern. There's a mountain range here, and up in here you can. And Peru, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana, that's over here along the north side. So there's plenty of places to go. You don't necessarily have to be in a big mountain. There's some disadvantages with that. You can be a hill. A hill is defined by something that's over 500 feet or around there. It's so when the water finally settles, you're not in the middle of a lake or standing water or whatever's happened. You want it basically drained away. In Africa, again here, this is where it's like 15 to 18,000 feet deep, this water. It's going to rush this way pretty quick. So I don't really look forward to having people have caves along here, the mountain range. There was evidence of glaciers over here, like I covered in one of the previous videos. It's possible you could put it on the eastern side of a hill. If the cave door is strong enough, you might be able to get away with it, but it's dangerous. I don't know what the pressures would be if you had 10,000 feet of ocean water rushing over you. I just don't know. On this side, by the time it gets here, the sun is going to, we think, is going to nova in this latitude over here. I'll show that in a few minutes. So as the water comes across Africa, that sun is going to evaporate maybe 1,000 or more feet of ocean water as it passes this way. But until it gets there, all of this, whatever forest is here, is going to burn. Areas of interest in Africa will be Ethiopia, eastern part, Eritrea, Somalia, Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Madagascar. That's Madagascar. Areas of interest in the Middle East, Oman, and Yemen. So over here, they're too busy killing each other right now, so hopefully by the time you're going to do this, it'll settle down, but I'll let the Arabs figure out what the hell they're going to do with each other. Now, this is some of, when I was looking at the African stuff, we've all been taught that all life started here in Africa and then spread out in the world. This is one of the articles. Some of these things are dated to 100,000 years before the present. And this is 50 to 60,000 years ago. This is 65. What I think you're really looking at, or we are really looking at, is the survivors went to Africa. They went in here. Somebody must have told them, go near the equator. After the nightmare was over and the rest of the world started melting and they can go back to home, they then traveled back to where the original origins were. Now, for China and stuff like that, in this area you can survive it. The Indian Ocean isn't that big for southern India, but one of the pictures I'm going to show you in a second, and you'll see what I mean, a better close-up. But this is, I think, what's really going on. Anybody we have here were basically the survivors of the last previous reversals. And I think they went down there. Somebody told them to go down by the equator. Here, southern India is in the range. Ceylon or Sri Lanka is, but it's one big volcano. Look out. This whole area here, again, you're going to have the Indian Ocean rushing over you, and it's pretty deep. Australia, the same thing, but you can survive it here. Whether the Chinese are going to go down here, they may get away with surviving up in here, in this area. Okay, so these are additional things that I came across that you worry about. Cosmic rays and gamma rays and ultraviolet light are the three things that can alter the DNA. And so the question is, how much shielding do you need for cosmic rays and gamma rays? And I came across an article, the Japanese, and lightning creates gamma rays. That's what they found. And so, but they had the article, I had the article that shows of which material a gamma ray at these voltages, 100, 200, and 500 kilovolts, how much material would stop a gamma ray? Gamma rays here. And for 500 kilovolts, it's 0.42 centimeters, which is about a quarter of an inch of lead. It goes on from here. This would be about a little bit more than an inch if it was aluminum. It goes on from there. Now, the stuff we're talking from the sun, or a lightning bolt, is probably in the order of the millions of volts. So it's going to be more. But the point I'm trying to make here is this. For those people who claim they're experts and say that somehow magically cosmic rays that usually get absorbed in the atmosphere, like hit a nitrogen atom and it becomes carbon-14, that somehow magically this is going to go through the whole atmosphere and through 40 or 30 to 60 miles of rock, and somehow magically it's going to heat up the outer mantle so the crust of the earth is going to move. This has got to be beyond stupid. It's like some people have never read what a cosmic ray is and what it can do and how much shielding you need to stop it. Certainly a few feet of rock is going to stop it, but you'll never see that part. You'll see the gamma rays, and that doesn't take very much to stop it all. So if you're in a cave system, you don't have to worry about that. We believes. Additional variables to consider. This is the dust shell. One of the fellows, the engineers, were trying to figure out how thick the dust shell would be from the sun. Now originally, he didn't put 100,000, I did. He only thought the dust shell on the sun was only going to be 1,000 miles thick. Forget it. The surface of the sun that we see looks like it's about 4 or 5 Earth diameters thick. So let's assume at least 100,000. So he got this reference from Wikipedia, that the sun's density at the surface of 88 pounds a cubic foot. I have no idea how he came up with that. I don't believe it's correct at all. So I realize this stuff really has to be worked better. This has to be figured out by some solar scientists that can do a better number. So we have an idea what the thickness of this dust shell is going to hit the Earth, but I'm sure it's going to be at least 50 or 100,000 miles or 30,000 miles as it passes the Earth. He was trying to figure out how many seconds. He figured about 1 minute it would pass if it was 100,000 miles. That was my calculations, rather. So anyway, there's only one way to know for sure what longitude is going to be high noon when that sun novas, which can tell you then also what longitude will be that will get the dust shell and which longitude is going to get the instant ice age. There's only one way to know it. If you watch Series 10, Parts 4, 5, and 6, that'll give you the hint. Height and speed of the oceans. This again, one of the engineers was trying to figure out. And I showed this in one of the earlier videos. The Earth rotates at 1,050 miles per hour. I think the wave and stuff like that is going to be less than this. I think the part we have to think about is the Earth's mass or information or gravity is not going away. The same thing goes for the ocean water. It has mass, it has information, and the information that makes up the planet is going to somehow flatten this thing and actually act like a resistance to it. I can't believe that ocean wave by the equator is going to go at 1,000 miles an hour. That's faster than speed of sound, I don't see it. I think wind resistance alone would stop it, but that's why I really need NOAA to help and figure this thing out with an open mind, or I should say, they have to know, somebody in NOAA has to know that this thing's going to happen. They spent $21 trillion on these cave systems in the US. They had to have gone to NOAA, somebody there in NOAA, to figure something out, I hope. This is the other thing that I was thinking about myself. When they put up satellites, they found that 5 degrees north or south of the equator, there was a spike of radio noise, static. That means something in the center of the Earth is generating that static 90 degrees out of phase of the direction of the information. That's very simple. From Maxwell and Faraday, we know electromagnetism pretty good. No one's saying they were wrong. So the same thing goes for the D, F1 and F2 layers around the Earth. That and this radio noise here proves right off the bat the center of the Earth is not an iron core, because iron cores don't give off electromagnetic energy. So the principle is back to my graph from the Hebrew alphabet in the physics section, which is video series 1. The information crosses the x-axis and it creates a big spike of energy or matter. Here, exhibited here, crosses this imaginary x-axis. That's the polar reversal. It might create a big spike of energy along the equator. So you don't necessarily want to put a cave system within 1 or 2 degrees north or south of the equator. This is what happens when lightning hits sand. And these are pretty big. Now keep in mind, this thing's probably no older than 12,000 years old. This is when a lightning bolt hit the sand and turned it to glass. This is a much smaller sample of this thing. See a little tendonites going out like this. Here's another example. Now keep in mind, this was all under sand. Over the thousands of years, the sand wore away by the ocean and let this thing show up. But look at this. This is huge. This was all in the sand when the lightning hit it. Same thing here. You can look it up on Google Images for lightning on sand, and you'll see what it is. There's lots of images of this stuff, but that's what happened. It turns the sand to glass. So the question is if you had a cave on the equator and this happens, you could have sheets of voltage rushing through the cave system and cooking not only the electronics in the place, but also the people, electrocuting them. I don't want that. So we have to figure out, the only way to do this, if I found geologists who are in the countries on the equator, do they see a lot of this in the hills or the surrounding area? If they do, that may be an indication that's what's going on. Organizational structure of the individual survival cave systems. Now, as an accountant, I had to think about this. How do I wind up instilling an organization where people have one person, one vote in this? Because, believe me, within a year to a half a year of this event happening, all governments are going to kind of disappear. They'll vanish like a morning mist. So the objective is to find some kind of an organizational structure. It had to be a structure that would be legally recognized in the country of location. In other words, you're going to have maybe 1,600 or 2,000 people within a structure, and it has to be recognized by the country of destination. Brazil, Peru, Colombia, name it. In other words, it has to be legal. Also, I wanted to have a structure where people could vote out its officers or an officer if the guy or gal turned out to be a raving Hitler or a cult leader and you don't need him. So you vote him out. So I chose a corporate structure. Because remember, it's not going to be any government. Government's going to disappear. Each member of the cave system would have only one share, and they'd have to pay for the share because you need money to actually build this stuff. So they're going to buy one share. And that gives you one vote. Each person would pay for the one share. That's the proceeds that are going to build this thing. Anyway, when a baby is born after the reversal, assuming no births beforehand, thank God, a birth certificate would be produced and the baby would get one share. But he or she couldn't vote until they were 18 years old. They want to be an adult. Baby would not have to pay only a token amount. And I'll go into what kind of money you'll bring with you. And it won't be paper money. So you pay a token amount. It could be $1, a silver dollar or something like that. When a person dies, you produce a death certificate like you normally would. And that person's one share, the corporation would buy it back at a token amount, and that one share goes into what they call treasury stock, non-voting treasury stock. Now, the reason what's good about that is by doing that, the people in the future will know, by just by how many treasury stocks, how many people died. They'll know, if you have a birth certificate, you know who the father and the mother was. And if you have a death certificate, hopefully it'll tell you also what they died of and how old they were when they died. This is important for people in the future, like from hundreds of years to 1,000 years in the future. They want to know how these people survived this thing and what happened. Let me see, I don't want to, okay, so the corporate environment is pretty simple. I would name the corporation so people had an idea of, I think it's important they find out or know where they came from, and so they had an identity, so they didn't, so your great-grandchildren say, well, where'd you come from? And they, well, I don't know. So the corporate, I would propose the corporate name be first the country, an abbreviation of the country, like USA, the state or province the person came from, and a sequential number. So an example of USA, Florida, 1. That way it's easier to do it. If you've got a group that's going to be of one type of, well, it wouldn't be a good idea to have one type of background in a cave. That would not be a good idea. It wouldn't work anyway. So anyway, what I suggest, corporations formed in the United States. Each shelter would have its own corporation. When at least 60% of the stock is sold out. No, you don't start doing this and selling it until you know how much, you have an estimate of how much it's going to be to build that cave in that location. And it's going to take engineers and accountants and builders to figure out what the cost is going to be to do this. Then you take that cost and you divide it into 2,000 shares or 1,600 shares, and that's how much everybody's going to pay. Technically, that's how it's done. When you get to 60% of that, then what you do is you then wind up have enough money to actually start construction. You then form a foreign corporation, and you transfer some of the money, not all of it down there, to it, and you start building. Now, the trick is beforehand, the money would obviously have to go into an escrow account or a trust account. And after you have enough people, then the trust account then goes into the, you form the corporation at that point. And that's how you do, how I think you can do it that'll work. See, I like to go for practical, workable solutions that the average person can do. My definition of a family unit, some people, some of them may not like it, but I had to think this, I thought this out for a long time. How many people make up a group? Because I want everybody to understand what I'm about to say, and this has to do with the survival of the human race. I don't want it that only 30 fertile females survive it like it did 12,000 years ago. I want to give a lot more people a chance of survival. I don't want to lose the technology that we've developed up to this 21st century. A lot of it's very good technology, and some is plainly not too good at all. It's a waste of money, some of it. So that's one of the things I want to install in this. And this is my suggestion, but I think it's workable. There's two categories of family units in the cave system. Two groups. One group, the first basic family group, should be one male between 20 and 27 years old and three females. In essence, he's going to have three wives, but not all the same age. Staggered, the oldest of the females from 18 to 23. This is a ballpark, but 18 to 23. Females after that should be spaced 5 to 7 years apart. So you have somebody who's maybe 13 or 14 years old, and you got someone 5 or 6 years old. And the reason is very simple. You don't want all the females to be of childbearing age all at the same time. That would be a disaster. You're going to be stuck in a cave maybe for 11 years until that sun starts producing enough visible light you can start growing things and producing food. So you don't want to have too much of a load on the survivors, and especially not him. So, and these two are not going to eat as much as a grown man or woman. So that's the reason why. Now, the other reason why you save more women than men is because it takes a woman 9 months to produce a person. And for that reason, you save the women, you save more women than men. Now, they're not getting out of doing hard work. They have to in order to survive this thing. There's going to be a lot of work involved. And this is what I came up with. You come up with a better suggestion, you tell me. At first I thought 4 women. I said, no way, this poor guy would hate my guts forever if he had 4 women have to deal with all the same age. As it is, these two would be, in essence, the parents of these two, even though they'd all be his wife. For some reason, I think the Arabs are going to love this. I didn't plan it around them at all. This is merely, you have to think in terms, this is survival of the human race. Second group would be highly skilled individuals of many fields. The age limit would be expanded depending on the skills offered, but it will still be the same male to female ratio. Which educational skills must be incorporated in each survival cave. Now, I want a cross section. The reason is you want to duplicate this stuff in multiple caves in case something happens to one of them and a whole bunch of people inside a cave don't survive it. You want to be able to have these skills in other caves that may be in the area that you'll be able to help the other ones. So, engineers of all types, doctors, surgeons, nurses, biologists, pharmacists, electrical engineers, geologists, chemists, farmers, etc. I have teachers in there, and I also have musicians. I want to mention something about musicians. I played violin for 9 years. What I think happened when I was playing the violin, it made a connection between my right and left brain, and that's maybe why I think three-dimensionally. So I do think music is important. And that means you have to have some people that know music and can teach it to the young ones because you're developing their brains. Besides teachers, if you're in a cave system, believe me, those kids and young people have to go to college. The ones who have these expertise are going to be teaching everybody else these expertise so they know how to do this stuff. My joke here is lawyers and politicians need not apply. You really don't need them. Only in big government do you need the lawyers and the politicians. There won't be any. You're going to have a corporate structure for a while, at least while you're all in the cave system. Side notes about protection. There's no guarantee in life that everybody's going to be kind, considerate, and honest, as we know. No. So when you go into your cave system, although not only in the cave system, you worry about some people, but also outside after the cave system is over with and you're building your own wooden houses and stuff like that. You bring your guns and lots of ammunition, knives and swords, they work real good too. And of course, the lovely bows and arrows, our ancestors used them and they worked real good for them too. So I'm not naive and I love the Second Amendment. Notes about fiat currencies. Here we go. All paper currencies will be worthless before this geomagnetic reversal. I just don't know when. Now, the same thing goes for electronic currencies that could be turned off whenever the government decides to shut down the routers for the internet. And have no doubts, if they want to control you, they will. Same thing goes for, I was thinking about it, these politicians and elites are so scared of the Americans or the human race that they don't want them to go to the cave entrances in case they are discovered. What's a better way? If you have a bunch of, everybody has electric cars, all you have to do is turn off the electricity a week or 2 weeks beforehand and you're not going anywhere, are you? Maybe it's not such a great idea to give up your gasoline car. Keep it. Diesel fuel is good too because it lasts a lot longer than gasoline. Anyway, what I'd like people to do is, I'm sure the media is going to be happy to comply with government to tell you whatever lies necessary to the general public. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the fact that we don't have a solar eclipse any longer. We have a big white sidewall tire. Anyway, start collecting gold and silver coin. Gold and silver has been a monetary exchange of goods and services for thousands of years, and it's not going to change. So bring it with you. And of course, you have your guns to protect yourself. I think I said back earlier, saving the accountant, who's probably going to be the banker and the corporate officer, the treasurer of the corporation. So you only need one accountant, that's it. Okay, another thing. Those who have been saying that during a polar reversal in this cataclysm, that it's okay to go to Colorado or New Mexico. I know of 2 individuals who are claiming that Colorado is a wonderful place and it's going to save your ass. That was taken and lifted right from the CIA disinformation book called The Adam and Eve Story, which I will do a video on that one after I get done reading all of it and comparing it. But I know for a fact that it was not written in 1965. And in fact, it had some of my stuff in it. So this is how you tell if an area that you're going to ever had a glacier in it or on it. Now, this is glacial till. Now, this is rocks from a rock slide on a road. And you notice the rocks are very jagged and right-angled edges and stuff like that. When it's in a glacier, it's like when you take rock and you put a grit in it and a tumbler to make it a shiny rock or jewelry and stuff like that. It's the same thing. The sand and rock inside the glacier winds up smoothing out to rock to look like this. And I have a blow-up picture of it a little better. So if you go digging or on the surface and you see rounded rock like this and you're not near a riverbed, then you had a glacier there. And depending on how much of this is there, gives you an idea how big the glacier was. The guy from the U.S. Forest Service said he found this kind of stuff and other evidence of a glacier in Arizona. So I also wanted to show you, I did some research on glaciers in about the Rocky Mountain region. There are 14 glaciers in Colorado. That's now. Now, 12,000 years ago, what do you think Colorado was like? This is a state that gets snow in June and sometime last year, I think it was July. Gee, I think you might have so much snow, they will never find you. 9 glaciers in New Mexico. There are at least 37 named glaciers in Wyoming. This is all now, not 12,000 years ago or 11,000 years ago. It was all white. Mexico has 3 major glaciers now. Glaciers are found in Washington, Oregon, California, and Nevada. So, but the ones along the Rocky Mountains, that some people are claiming you can go there and the ocean is not going to be reaching you, I would say it's a colossal lie. I have the journal articles that prove this stuff. If you write me an email, I'll send you the 2 PDF geology reports. This is the end. Dye Foundation is a 501c3. It's a public science foundation. If you log on to the IRS, you'll see my tax returns, 990s. I haven't filed 2020. I've been a little busy, so it's on extension. But after this video, I'm going to finish it and file it. Being an accountant, I do everything by the book. It works better that way. And I don't know what else to say. I'm 73 years old. I never thought I'd have to be doing this in the latter part of my life. Same thing goes for John from Boeing Aircraft. We didn't expect we'd have to do this, but it's basically to save our children and other people's. And I want to save more of the human race than what happened in the past. If you're part of the agency that made this faux pas, that's a nice way of putting it, or the Defense Department, I'm more than happy to help you doing this thing. I understand your problem that you can't really go off to these countries either, because it'd be obvious then to the general public that you made a colossal mistake and you know what's going to happen. But I'm willing to help. You know how to get a hold of me. Please contact me. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you're not too scared. If you haven't seen this stuff before, please watch all of Series 4.